Vantage is a legend that brings something to almost every scenario, being mobility during a fight, reaching unexpected heights to get the drop on the target, providing enemy info, and having a built-in long-range offensive option, with the strengths in her kit putting her comfortably in the mid to long-range gunfight playstyle. Her passive has a myriad of utility that will benefit the team, providing 3x zoom when aiming without a weapon, and along with a 2x scope or higher, reveals tactical info about the enemies you spot. You can see the names of the legends, how many alive in their squad, what tier of Evo armor they have, and their distance away from you, all only one ping away from sharing with your squad without the need of a mic. On top of that, with any long-range sniper scope, Vantage gets this blue circle on or below her reticle, which adjusts itself depending on how far away you're aiming to cater for bullet drop. What you get from this is a much more reliable way to flick to people from far, being able to down them before they can make cover. Her tactical has her teaming up with her bat buddy Echo for some mad terrain traversal, using the bat to pick a position and then jetpacking to its location. And finally, Vantage's ult is an actual sniper and with a single small mag that recovers bullet by bullet over time. Hitting an enemy with this sniper debuffs them, increasing follow-up damage from any source slightly, and doubles the follow-up damage from her own ult. The gun comes with a laser sight which is extremely visible to allies and enemies alike, so there's no hiding who you're about to destroy next. Well, that's the overview, but now we get into the useful details about her kit, how best to use her, and then how to play against her. First off, I'll mention Vantage is a recon legend. Other than the fact it means she's well suited to scoping out info across the battlefield, she can also make use of beacons to scan the location of the next circle. Let's go into a little more detail to the features of her passive. First, as mentioned, you get a 3x zoom when aiming without having a weapon out. This is useful for scoping out enemies without the interference of a scope on your screen. If you take a 2x scope or higher, then you can also take advantage of the passive, which will point out enemies when scanning across areas with this box around them. So it's a lot harder for enemies to be watching you amongst the terrain without standing out like a sore thumb. The great thing is this box also comes up when aiming into the likes of smoke and other visual clutter, so you can take full advantage of knowing where the enemy are in the more chaotic situations. One note on this box is that it will only highlight one enemy at a time, which could make it a little confusing when trying to understand the positioning of a full squad in smoke, for example. The information gathering Vantage retrieves about the enemy squad is the first of its kind in Apex. The key things being showing the status of the enemy armors, which will help your team decide if they're an easy push or a 2-stack to be worth it right now. You can use this information to focus on the lowest armored target for an easier knock, or to spot a rat or duo passing, as it lets you know their current squad size, so you can rush them without hesitation about being flanked by their teammates. You may not have noticed it at first, but as mentioned, you get this blue circle when aiming with longer range scopes that shows up below your reticle. This takes into consideration the range of your target and the bullet drop of the weapon to make shooting enemies far away a very pleasurable experience. The blue circle will remain centered and upon spotting an enemy will flick to the correct drop distance for their position. You can then use the blue circle as your target reticle for long range. Vantage's tactical has a lot of characteristics that make it excel in some areas, but it comes with a number of drawbacks that need to be understood. The basis of this ability is that you send your bat friend Echo out to a location and then activate the ability again to fly towards it. When you reach him, you get the opportunity to hit jump again for a little mini jig into the direction of your choice, something that is very much required to land on a specific spot. At first, the use of the tactical can feel a little clunky, but it's fine to use once you get used to it. You have two basic ways to activate it. Firstly, by pressing the tactical button once to position Echo, and then holding down the button to start the leap towards him. Note it must be held down as another tap of the button will just relocate him to the next position. The other option is just pressing and holding down the tactical button. This will both position Echo and jump you whilst he's still flying to the location, and will serve as the simplest way to execute the combo, but will only work in this way if you had recalled Echo to you previously. Therefore, there are two states to consider when using this ability. Is he positioned at a location you have marked, or have you recalled him to follow you? Which one will define how is best to use your jump in a particular situation. The cooldown is a reasonably low 20 seconds, and you can jump pretty far forwards or even to a position at height, making her extremely strong at flanking and positioning to the high ground. Pressing crouch will cause you to start dropping from the leap if you're needing to drop quickly. Great for when you realise you just made yourself a sitting duck and want to dip. Your reticle will turn blue if it's on a distance close enough that Echo can be sent there. The same indicator used for Pathfinder to highlight that you can grapple to that feature. Echo himself has colour indicators to help aid the use of the tactical. going red when out of line of sight, yellow when on cooldown, and blue if it's all A-OK. One thing to consider is the actions to perform this ability, and the wind-up time of the animation needs a bit of getting used to. When it comes to activating the tactical, the only time it being blue matters is at the end of the animation, so it can be wound up in advance as long as you're facing Echo in line of sight at the time of completion. If Echo is positioned somewhere and you start to run away from it, it will stay put until you reach around 55 meters away, at which point it will stay within that 55 meter range of you at all times. Echo is immune to damage, so unlike Crypto's drone, you don't need to worry about him being picked out of the sky. However, on the flip side, he serves as a beacon for enemies to know that you are nearby. Another downside to this ability is how loud it is when used, serving as another indicator to teams that there is a Vantage around. Finally, her ultimate pulls out a sniper with a maximum of 5 ammo at any one time. The recharge of each bullet is 40 seconds, meaning a whole clip would take 3 minutes 20 to fully recharge. You can use an ulti accelerant to recharge almost 2 bullets, but sadly it has to be clicked from the inventory, unlike most other legends who can just press the ulti button to use the accelerant, due to it still pulling the gun out when you have charges missing. The gun deals 50 damage to the body or 70 to the head on first hit, marking that enemy with a debuff for 10 seconds that increases damage taken from all sources by 15%, but double damage from repeated hits from Vantage's sniper. The sniper comes with an extremely visible laser, which will make it very clear to an enemy that they're being aimed at, and will also give away your position very accurately to anyone watching. So that's the breakdown of the individual features of her kit, but how do we use it all together on the battlefield? Firstly, although using a mic for comms is only a recommendation, as a legend that can collect so much information, I feel like using voice comms really boosts her value to the team. You can ping a lot of the info she gets, but reminding your team about the status of particular squads and pointing out strats based on her ability to get to high ground quickly will add up over time. This also means that she's best suited to exactly this, covering ground with her tactical, be it jumping across cliff sides or up high and then scoping out enemies from afar. Placing Echo where you plan to retreat in advance of engaging or running out to loot somewhere will save you valuable wind-up time when using her tactical, as well as not having to aim to a specific location as you do it. Outside of this, I'd recommend getting used to always recalling Echo when you have a moment to do so, in order to use it when the situation arises, rather than having ample delay waiting for him to return from his position. Echo can be recalled in most circumstances, as the animation can be used for example while shooting and even ziplining. Double jumping at the end of a first jump will require some practice if you're new. It gives the ability the flexibility it needs to land on a particular spot at the last moment. This adjustment will be required often, as you are pointing Echo at locations in the air rather than a particular landing spot. For weapons, I think the most important gun type to take is a mid to long range scoped weapon, to make full use of her passive to gather information and poke enemies, as well as following up on the 15% debuff from tagging enemies with your ult. Your second gun could then be a close range or a close to mid range option depending on playstyle. Consider primarily using your ult for the mentioned debuff, unless they are clearly in kill range to fire off another shot. Tagging multiple enemies or tagging and saving the rest of the ammo might be the better call, assuming you have teammates that are capable of capitalizing on it, making a coordinated team a lot more valuable if Vantage is a part of it. Consider also using the ult freely when at 5 charges to get the recharge timer ticking, and therefore getting the most out of your auto-recovering ammo. Next, be sure to read the situation before aiming your ult at the enemy team. If they are unaware of you, then they sure will be once they see the laser on them. And if you're looking to make a play, don't scope in on them until you're ready to take the shot. And also at times when you would want to apply suppressive fire to help a teammate recover, the laser on its own can often act as useful applied pressure on the enemy squad to stay behind cover. So what do we need to consider when playing against Vantage? First is that Vantage has one of the larger hitboxes in the game, but doesn't get the bonus of the largest hitbox champs that give 25% damage reduction, arguably making her one of the easier ones to take down. Much like Loba's teleport, there's a slight delay after landing from her tactical before she equips her gun, so if she uses it to engage, you can take advantage of being able to get the first shot out. Whilst being great at taking the advantageous position, she isn't so great at doing so subtly. Listening out for a tactical will let you know that she's around and roughly where she must be. Her ult sniper's laser will give you a straight line pointing right to her, and you'll often be able to spot her buddy Echo tirelessly trying to stay in range of her, so you get more info on her location. And lastly, as a kit is catered to range mostly, I'd say she falls off more and more as the game progresses. By the final circle, if she hasn't swapped out her weapons for close range, she'll be less impactful than other legends, and therefore you can be more confident in approaching her. In my opinion, there's no standout legend that synergizes particularly well with Vantage, other than maybe Rampart, as the boost when shooting through her cover pairs well with Vantage's long-range, high-damage weapon choices. However, due to the nature of the game, she's actually a flexible pick into many different comp types. Pairing well with 2 aggressive mobile legends will allow you to capitalize more on the information provided by her kit, by pushing weak teams or retreating quickly, whereas 2 more passive legends would make safe and efficient use of the positioning advantages she has. Well, thanks for watching. I hope this has been useful for everything you need to know to play Vantage. Her kit is very versatile, yet really suits that recon style of gameplay. And if given the time to learn to play around the limitations and drawbacks of her kit, she can be a force to be reckoned with. And just remember, we play games for fun. So if it stresses you too much, cool off, touch grass, and when you play to win.